You know I love a good oddball IBM clone computer, and today is no exception. We're covering the HeadStart Explorer right here on Vintage Geek. Just a reminder, if you like what you see today, please consider liking and subscribing. It's going to help us a lot as we grow. And one of the things that helps us the most is when you become a Vintage Geek member. You can do that at the website. It's less than $20 a year, and you get access to all of our video content commercial free. You can sign up at vintagegeek.com. Recently, I was able to attend VCF East in Wall, New Jersey. And this is the first time I've been able to go to the Vintage Computer Festival there. And it was an amazing time. There were vendors everywhere with great exhibits, things I've never seen before. Got to see the original systems that powered the Weather Channel, got to see some RCA Cosmac units, and even got to see some really great vintage computers in the museum section, like an original Univac. One of my favorite places to visit on any festival trip is the consignment section, and this particular festival was no exception. In fact, the line to the consignment section on Saturday morning seemed like it was about a mile long, and that wind was awfully cold, but it was worth the wait because when I got inside, I found this gem, the HeadStart Explorer in its original boxes. I had never seen this particular machine before. I was immediately enthralled by the artwork and everything on the box of this computer. First of all, it appears to be an 8088 XT type clone, but it has this really interesting design, including a flip-down keyboard, which I had never seen in an IBM compatible unit before. This really piqued my interest, and I had to read a little bit more on the box to find out what this was all about. This apparently has its own custom ROM BIOS that's going to allow us to select programs, and that loads directly from memory. It has some weird expansion slots, so I want to study this machine in depth, find out what it's all about, and maybe even try it out here on Vintage Geek. The HeadStart originally came out in 1989, and it was designed to be a home computer at an affordable price point. They did actually make a monitor and a monitor stand for this, but it was sold separately. You can see it in the box art. It actually looked pretty cool because it would kind of go around the chassis of this, and then it would allow access to the floppy drives on the side and give you a nice place to put the monitor. We don't have those pieces of the system, but it does use a standard CGA monitor port, so we should have a monitor that will work with it to do some testing today. Now, there's not a whole lot going on with the front of this unit. There's a series of LED lights at the right-hand side of the front panel. The first light you have is the power LED, followed by the turbo LED, so apparently this does have the capability of increasing that clock speed a little bit. Then it has the floppy disk and hard disk indicators as well. I read that this machine could come with a hard drive, which they called the Auto Magic hard drive, and I'm really disappointed that this one does not have that because anything that is called Auto Magic just sounds amazing. But apparently it was a plug-in accessory that would go into this unit, and this particular model did not come with it. The model number on the system is actually the EX938CP. The CP stands for cheap. So let's see what happens when we get into the keyboard of this unit, which is really one of its most unique features. I've never seen this before. This actually has a keyboard attached to it, and it's set up in a way that you can just kind of flip it down in front of the chassis. So let's give that a try. Oh, that is nice. Now, with the keyboard open on this unit, it actually looks a lot like an early word processing system. In fact, I remember my grandparents had a Brother word processor from about this era, and it really reminds me of this, just the overall look with the keyboard kind of slanting up into the overall chassis of the system. It almost feels like this top part could actually be a typewriter, you know? So really interesting design choice on this. I'm not really sure how much you save by having the keyboard physically attached to the chassis, but I guess on the plus side, you never have to worry about physically plugging in a cable or potentially losing it. I guess the downside would be if something happens to the keyboard, you're pretty much stuck with the one that's attached. But it looks like it's fully functional. You've got all your standard IBM keys. There's not the middle section that has the arrows and the insert, page up and page down, but you do have a full number pad, and it looks fairly functional for what it is. The keys themselves feel pretty good. There's no click or anything to them. So let's take a look at the side panels of the system. Taking a look at the left-hand side of the machine, there really isn't much going on except for the power switch. Pretty cut and dry there. The other side of the case actually has the 3.5-inch floppy drive, which is the only floppy drive in the system. All the system software that came with this is on 3.5-inch floppies. And next to that is a port that you can open. There's actually a door that can be removed, and inside that is the slot for the Auto Magic hard drive, which was a plug-in assembly. I'm gonna have to add that to the wish list because I would love to see what comes with the Auto Magic hard drive for the system, but alas, that will not be happening today. On the top of the unit, there is a removable panel, and that panel is gonna contain the expansion slots for the system. We can see see that there is one expansion slot that would accept a standard ISA type card. Granted, that would have to be a shorter card. There's not enough actual physical room in the device to do a full length card. And there's only one slot. So basically this is an adapter that goes from a normal orientation slot to the kind of side mount system so that you could fit it in the chassis. Again, there probably wouldn't be a ton of cards that would fit in this, but it does give you some room to expand the system. There's also a slot next to that, which I think is for the memory expansion that you could order with the system. They do mention that on the box. I don't know exactly how that worked, but I assume you would just plug it into this slot next to this and you would have another 256K of memory. Then finally, there's the battery itself. That's going to back up that CMOS and the real-time clock. And it looks like this one has been replaced at some point, which is a relief. We don't have to worry about anything leaking over the board, so that should be in pretty good shape. Now, taking a look at the back of the unit, we've got a pretty standard complement of ports, starting with a joystick port, then you've got a CGA monitor port, followed by a disk interface port. I'm not sure what kind of external floppy this would have used, or if they had one that they actually made for it. Haven't seen one yet, but if you know anything about that, please leave a comment below. Then you've got the modem port, which looks like you could use any standard serial type connection. Interestingly, next to the modem port though is a tiny switch that switches between color and monochrome. I find it interesting that that's next to the modem port and not to the monitor port. I don't know if that's actually an oversight on someone's part or it just worked out better on the board that way, but just seems a little strange placement wise to me. And finally, you've got a standard parallel printer port. I assume this would work with any of the dot matrix printers at the time, which would make an easy interface for printing at home, which would be one of the main purposes of this system, is to be kind of your all-in-one home solution. So pretty basic overall, but I like the design. It's clean and simple, and I'm really anxious to get this set up and working. I did want to mention very quickly that we did get some other accessories with the system as well, one of those being the 3-button mouse that actually came in a separate box. It also came with a paint program, I presume, to show off the capabilities of using this cool mouse with the system. This one looks like it's in really good shape. So we should be able to fire everything up, get out a CGA monitor, and really see what this all looks like. So I've got the HeadStart Explorer all ready to power up for the first time. Now the note on the box said that everything works, but I don't know for sure. This is going to be our first time trying it, so here goes. Let's do some exploring. Ooh, nice graphic. It's very quiet. No fan noise of any kind that I can hear. Oh wow. So the system boots up to this graphical user interface, and honestly, this looks pretty good. As I've read, this actually lives in the ROM BIOS, so it takes up approximately 384K. This is a great looking interface so far. I love the mouse pointer that says, do this. It's very to the point, and you don't just get the pointer in the hand, you actually get part of the arm, the wrist, and the hand with the pointing finger, so pretty clever right there. Now it looks like we've got several things in the user interface right off the bat. I did notice also that the floppy disk drive during this process is continually loading. That feels like the Amiga to me, as far as systems that would be similar. I assume it's just waiting for a disk to be inserted so that it can actually pop up some kind of icon in the user interface. We'll test that in a little bit, but first I want to get into the icons that already exist in the system. Let's take a look at the top one here. This looks like it's probably our calendar. Ooh, I like the animation on that, bringing everything to the middle. A lot of the buttons here are hard to read because it's kind of a black on black situation. It thinks that it's January of 1980 right now, and I'm just gonna let that go. You can click around to the various dates on the calendar, it appears, and if I click change on one of these, what's gonna happen? Okay, so apparently the blue keys are things you can't do right now, but let's try the add button. I can barely read add on here. So looks like you can add an appointment and you can put in your time. So let's say that the 11th of January, 1980, we're gonna go 10 until 2. I don't know if it'll ask for AM or PM, vintage. I'll click OK on that. Yeah, and there it is. So we can see our appointments for January 11th. I click on different dates, those will go away. And now it looks like we could actually change the appointment or delete it. Again, interesting with the color scheme, it's kind of opposite of what I would expect. Not bad overall, seems to be fairly intuitive. Let's get out of the calendar and see what else we've got. Save changes to date book. I'm gonna say yes. I wonder if it saves that to the ROM or if you have to It apparently does need a disk in order to save the dates on the calendar, so I'm going to go ahead and just hit cancel on that. Oh wow, okay. So apparently the restart button really means restart in this case. Thankfully the GUI doesn't require a disk, so we should be back into this very quickly. I do like the fact they've got the HeadStart Explorer logo in the boot up process. That's pretty cool. Let's see what the next thing is here. So this is our calculator. I think this is probably self-explanatory, but We can click in numbers, and it looks like it's defaulting to currency. So this would be kind of a financial-based calculator. Oh, interesting. As you're doing this, it's actually showing on the left-hand side kind of like a paper tape printout from an adding machine. I kind of like that. It's a different approach to using a calculator, and it's pretty responsive and actually makes sense. There is a print tape option here. I assume if you had a printer hooked up to the system, you could actually print out this kind of paper tape as you go along. I am really done. Okay, so this looks like it's our Rolodex. We could keep contact information under letter A, Apple, and then if we accept this, now we've got our A page. It's got Apple Computer on it. Very basic, but pretty intuitive. I could see this being very useful in the home environment in 1989. At that time, there wouldn't have been a lot of things similar to this, except maybe DeskMate. It kind of feels a little bit like that for the Tandy systems. Overall, I think it's fairly clever so far. Let's get out of this. Quit but don't save. I know I need that floppy disk, which I don't have right now. Now I'm gonna assume that the typewriter icon must be some kind of a word processor. Yep, this is indeed a word processor. Pretty basic. It's got an indicator at the bottom showing you what position you're in the row. If I hit select text, the cut and paste functionality works as I would kind of assume it would. There's no highlighting the text when you go to cut and copy it, but it does kind of tell you what to do along the way, telling you to start and end where the selection is. So I think this is fairly intuitive. There's no font sizes exactly, but at least you can do the bold, italic, and underscore. And then what do we have when we click on the computer? So there's some basic functions you can do here. You can set the date and time. You can use DOS. Now I love a good tutorial, and I'm hoping that the one for the HeadStart Explorer does not disappoint. We actually got a disc with the system that says it has an animated tutorial with it, so I've got to give that a try. All right, computer ease. Oh yes. We've already got a smiley face on a key that's winking. Please wait while program loads into the computer. Computer ease, presented by Vendex Technologies, developed by Arrakis Technologies from 1987. So you've adopted a computer. Oh, this guy's looking cool. He's got a pink tie on. Sometimes you wonder who's in charge. There's so much to read and learn about computers. Relax. Computer ease will show you what you need to know to use a small computer called a microcomputer. To continue in the program, press the enter key when you're ready. Also press enter after a command or a response. First, let's get to know you better. See, they're starting the data mining already. Next, they're going to be marketing products. It's going to be Amazon all over again. Glad to meet you, Vintage Geek. Okay, we've got some options here. Show me the contents and features of the program. I'd like to continue. Find out more about Arrakis software. Well, I am really curious about Arrakis software. I've never heard about that brand before, so welcome to the world of Arrakis. Here is some exciting Arrakis software you can get for your computer. All programs are interactive tutorials using television-like animations to teach the subject. Computer ease apparently was $29.95. That's the program that came with the computer, so already a bargain. Chinese teaches you how to write and even pronounce Chinese. Macbeth, smart database, simulates a library visit to provide hours of entertainment for students exploring Shakespeare's famous play. Wow, man. Quite the library. You could get the software by simply calling that telephone number, so I guess these guys must have been Dune fans. I'm not sure where the name Arrakis came from, but looks like they had a pretty varied product line there. Oh wow, that's pretty cool. So they've got this broken down by the different components of hardware. Look at the size of that pointing hand. Now see, I'm impressed by the fact that the hand can actually go behind the text. Let's take a look at the computer. It usually sits under your monitor or on the floor beside you. This box and its contents are actually the computer. Well, thanks for that. The components that plug into the computer are called peripherals. We're just going to drop this keyboard to the side of the computer. There's a monitor. When the technician opens up your computer, take a look inside. Don't forget to unplug the equipment first. This looks great. I have to hand it to Arrakis software. Everything looks right. Even though they're simplified drawings, this definitely looks like the inside of a computer. It's pretty cool. It feels like there's a lot going on in this tutorial just with the animations and everything. The hum you hear inside the box is probably the fan, with the exception of the HeadStart Explorer that appears to have no fan at all. In fact, one of the things I read online is that this thing gets very hot if you leave it on for long enough, and if you happen to set something on top of this for long periods of time, it could actually melt the plastic. So I'm not going to be trying that, but they probably needed a little bit more cooling in this thing. I'm not really taxing the system a lot right now either though. We've got a quiz question here. How much electricity do you think the computer uses? The equivalent of a coffee maker, a 100-watt light bulb, a photocopy machine, or a refrigerator? Let's use the 100-watt light bulb and see what it says. Good thinking. Since the computer draws so little electricity, many users leave it on between working sessions rather than turn it off and on several times a day. And don't sand your floors or pull down plaster near your computer, even if it has been covered. It's a good idea. I choose to do all of my home remodeling work not next to the computer, but I'm glad that they brought that up. This little tutorial looks great. I think this would have been an awesome way to introduce computer technologies to people at home. So far, I'm really impressed with the HeadStart Explorer. I think this is a great little machine, and I want to spend a little bit more time with it, so I think we're going to have to do a second video on this because I want to check out some games on it, see how those play, maybe even explore the Paint program a little bit. So stay tuned for a video on that. If you liked what we covered today and you like vintage technology, be sure to like and subscribe. It helps us out a lot, but not quite as much help as when you become a Vintage Geek member. You can do that at our website. We have all of our videos available there commercial free, and for just under $20 a year, you too can be a Vintage Geek member. Check it out at vintagegeek.com. Until next time, I'm Aaron, and this has been Vintage Geek.